discussing a brand new law that's controversial, but before that, a Scottish tale as old as time. Well, not really. I really just want to explain this photo right here. Uh, so this guy, his name is Count Dankula. I don't know too much about him, but my understanding is that he is a YouTuber or was a YouTuber. And this little pug right here is his dog. And a couple years back, what he did was he took this dog and he just wanted to mess with his girlfriend because and he thought the best way to do that is to take this dog and teach him to raise his front paw, but only when he said something like gas the Jews, and that way it resembled a Nazi salute. That's not something I would teach a dog, but I can get that he was trying to be humorous. Um, the Scottish government, however, did not get that, and this guy, Count Dankula, was forced to appear in court, and he was sentenced to pay, I think, £800 a fine. I think he ended up not doing that, and instead he donated that money to charity. Um, so yeah, but look at this dog. He's a cute little guy, and this isn't the first incidence of racism from a dog. Let's be honest. I mean, we all remember Lassie, right? Lassie was always helping little Timmy get out of wells, but once, I heard, Lassie came across a kid named Paco stuck in a bear trap and totally ignored him. Yeah. And what about Snoopy? He was always shooting down Japanese planes because he wanted those kids in internment camps. And Scooby-Doo, a lot of people don't know this, but every time Velma pulled off the mask, Scooby would secretly mutter to himself, I bet it's a black guy that did it. So, yeah, not the only racism from a dog, but the point is that Scotland has its history with hate crime legislation. But just recently, I think April 1st or maybe the end of March, they put into place a new law, which we're going to read about here. So this article is from The Jurist, which is a publication that I don't know too much about, but the article is from April 2nd, and let's get into it. So let's see if I can pick a good voice for reading. This week in Scotland, a hate crime law that ranks among the world's strictest entered into force. The Hate Crime and Public Order Act 2021 aims to modernize and consolidate protections while broadening the scope of recognized hate crimes to encompass a wider range of individuals and circumstances. In other words, the legislation first introduced in March 2021 and subsequently receiving royal assent in April 2021 seems to have profound impact on Scotland's existing legislation. What does the law entail, and why has it proven so controversial? Are hate crimes a major issue in Scotland? It would be difficult to state with confidence how Scottish hate crimes compare internationally. Precise comparisons can be difficult to draw given the diversity among legislation, operative definitions, national reporting standards, and the reality that many hate crimes may go unreported. With that in mind, the U.S. reported 11,288 hate crimes in 2022, affecting 13,278 victims. Okay, that's kind of, doesn't seem like it adds up because there's more victims than crimes, unless maybe they're, I guess, counting one crime is affecting multiple victims. I guess maybe that's what they're doing. Let's continue. Spain reported 1,869 hate crimes during 2022, and Ireland reported 628. In June 2023, Scotland reported that the last year had seen some 5,738 hate crime charges. Okay, so that's about half of what's in the US, which is much larger. So, I don't know, perhaps the data would indicate that there is actually a hate crime epidemic among the Scottish people. Although I don't know if those are we don't know if those are actual hate crimes or somebody just being like somebody called me Chinese even though that's what I don't know. That's what I am. Uh, as noted above, hate crimes are not always reported. In a bid to bolster the impact of the new legislation, the Scottish Government, in cooperation with Police Scotland, initiated Hate Hurts, a public awareness campaign that aims to shed light on the effects of hate crimes and motivate both victims and witnesses to come forward. How were hate crimes treated in Scotland prior to Hate Crimes Act's passage? Before the introduction of the Hate Crimes Act, Scottish law recognized the hate crimes based on prejudice towards race, religion, disability, transgender identity, and sexual orientation. Hate crimes could be perpetrated against specific individuals or groups, with the law applicable even when the victim was mistakenly perceived to belong to a protected group. So basically, if you, I guess, aren't black, but somebody calls you a spook anyway, you can get your ass hauled to jail. That's a little weird. And then the article goes into some of the new changes. So more protections for age and transgender based crimes, and also if you belong to multiple categories. So if you're a lesbian and also black, you can't call anybody a dark carpet licker, I guess. A string of hatred you're not allowed to do, which I think that's something that we can all agree. Nobody should ever be string of hatred towards any group. So hopefully they enforce that properly. More protections against misogyny, and I guess there was a blasphemy, like you weren't allowed to commit blasphemy. I don't know the specifics of that, but now it's okay. So if you want to flip the bird to God, I guess theoretically you're protected in Scotland. And let's see. So, and then I guess the Scottish government has to keep better data and reporting on hate crime acts. What concerns have critics raised? The Hate Crimes Act, while aiming to enhance protections against hate crimes, has sparked controversy, particularly regarding its potential impact on free speech. Some of the more outspoken critics have included high-profile and often controversial advocates of free speech, such as Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling, tech billionaire and Twitter owner Elon Musk, and Scottish National Party MP and barrister Joanna Cherry KC, who I have no idea who that is. Their concerns revolve around the fear that the act could excessively restrict expressions of opinion, potentially stifling public discourse and creativity under the threat of legal sanction. Toby Young, director of Free Speech Union, has also raised concerns over the act, citing worries about suppression of free speech and the possibility of vexatious complaints. Moreover, enforcement authorities, particularly the Scottish Police, have expressed apprehensions regarding the act's implementation. The Scottish Police Federation has pointed out shortcomings in the training provided to police officers tasked with enforcing the new laws. I'd say that's the gist of it. Again, I don't know anything about the Jurist specifically as a publication. I don't feel that this article is really giving the full picture. I'm not necessarily saying they're doing it unintentionally, but I feel that because I've heard other sources complaining about this law, and I don't think the article correctly captured it in this section right here. They are sort of giving the other side of the argument, so they do deserve credit for that. But so what I've heard, and we shouldn't go on rumors, but also if there are people over in Scotland that are living this, are speaking out about it, I think that does have to be taken into account. So sorry, I had to look at my hair fall. But yeah, so what I've been hearing is that under this law, if you your crime doesn't have to necessarily be recorded or provable. It's just if somebody accuses you of something, like the police pay you a visit and you're in trouble. And also, I didn't see it in this article, but If it's there, I apologize, but it doesn't. What it doesn't seem to mention is that this isn't just a simple fine that you get when you break this law. It's a felony. You can spend time in prison if somebody doesn't like you saying, I don't know, flight attendant, or if somebody doesn't like the word stewardess instead of flight attendant. I don't know if they're offended by that. Well, I don't know, maybe not that because that's not based on racial stuff, but I don't know if somebody doesn't like you saying, I don't know, cracker when you're talking about what you're putting in soup. I guess they could theoretically have the police pay you a visit. um, so yeah, that's one of the consequences. It could also be harder for you to get a job. I don't know what jobs there are in Scotland besides shepherd, but if you wanted to rally up those sheep, not gonna happen if you get caught doing something like this. Um, and so yeah, it's very flimsy. Uh, let's say your mother brings home groceries, and you get very excited and you go, Cheez-Its! But somebody hears you wrong, and they think you said, Jesus. Uh, if that person's Catholic and gets offended, guess what? You're headed to jail, and you're about to be somebody's girlfriend. Ironically, a guy who's named Jesus. So, yeah, that's why it's a bad law. And also, somebody could also be. It's not a safe law for theater actors because, let's say you're playing a Klansman or whatever. If somebody finds your performance offensive, that law applies to this. So you could go to jail even when you were trying to make a point that that sort of racism is bad. So uh, a theater actor can get arrested for their role, which I think the government just put into place because they were offended at Mike Myers' portrayal as Fat Bastard. Let's be honest. That's what those Scots are angry about. What I find weird about it is that I think the two opposing sides to this is it's about two completely different things because as you can see here, it is called a hate crime law, but it's also called a censorship law. So what does that indicate to me? I think some people, they view this, the people that are for this law, if there are any, because I think once it gets implemented, people are going to realize that it's not providing the protections they want. But I think the people that are for this think that just it's an issue of just any sort of marginalizing or otherness. Just it has to be stamped out at all costs, and just we can't let the tiniest little seed of it seep through. Which I think is a sentiment that I think most of us can agree with. I just think that if you try to, I just think that's an unrealistic goal. And also sometimes trying to prevent something in this world, you end up creating more of it. So I think there's a danger of them doing that with this law. But so to them, it's an issue of hate crimes, and to the other side, it's this issue of censorship. They just think that, um, you know, it's those feelings are part of the world, and that people, as ugly as those things are, people should be able to express them, and or if they don't think that far, or if their opinion isn't that far with it, they still think that you know getting an actor in trouble for a role they're playing or a comedian in trouble for a joke, that's way too much, and it's not feasible to enforce it. And it isn't feasible to enforce it because the police in Scotland, it's only been a couple of weeks. The police in Scotland are overwhelmed. They can't enforce this law. And even the guy, Huzma Youssef, I think his name is, that that is responsible for putting this law into place. This guy that put the law into place, was was confronted by police over his own crime. And that's you gotta realize the brilliance of that, kinda. He did something, somebody came up, put the Uno reverse card down, and nobody could say shit because Uno is a Spanish word, and that shows tolerance. It's crazy, because, okay, here, under this law, this is a felony.
You can't say dwarf. I said, why the fuck not? I'll be talking about dwarf. Surely you can say dwarf when it's a dwarf you're talking about. She says, they're little people. I said, but little people and dwarfs. There's a difference between a little person and a dwarf. One of them's a fucking dwarf. And they both know which one it fucking is.
So that's felony. This is not a felony.
Pay for that? You gonna pay for that? Where?
Oh, of course, a fucking ad.
Anyone with $10,000
Says
or
when I'm
more in
trying
credit
to
card debt
fucking
will
make a point, but you get the idea. So that was a felony. That was not a felony. Felony.
Ate and shelled pistachios in my sleep. I sleep, eat. I don't even take time to sleep. I eat
Are you
so
sure?
much.
Because sometimes I'm drinking things that I didn't know what they were, and then I wake up with nuts on me. That happens.
Not a felony.
He fills his bag with chips, cakes, candy, and soda. And when he's done, he just walks out.
Felony.
Call this a soccer riot? Come on, boys. Let's take him to school. Oh!
Not a felony. So yeah, I think we maybe have our priorities not set straight. So yeah. So how do I think this is going to play out? Well, for one thing, I always personally wanted to visit Scotland. It's like one of the top places that I'd like to be. I currently would still like to go, but I don't feel comfortable going because I definitely don't feel comfortable performing in Scotland. Let's be honest, because most courts around the world are not kind to foreigners. So on top of the punishments that a citizen would get, I would probably be a little more subject to, a little more prone to ending up being somebody's girlfriend in prison. Let's put it that way. And I think that a lot of people are going to feel the same way I do, and they're not going to go visit Scotland. So Scotland just kind of shot itself in the foot and is going to miss out on all its tourism dollars or pounds or whatever. So we'll see if they realize that this isn't a sustainable law. But yeah, who knows? You could be arrested in Scotland. But I'm not in Scotland right now, so that means I can say potentially offensive things and not get arrested because they can't do shit. So I'm too lazy to write these jokes down, so let's see if I can remember the jokes that I made about Scotland. So here we go. Here's my attempt to offend you people. So an American, he goes up to a Scottish person and he says, what is that? And the Scottish person goes, oh, it's haggis. I love eating it for lunch. And the American goes, well, what's haggis? And the Scottish guy goes, oh, it's made of sheep's stomach. I love eating the sheep's stomach. And the American is horrified. He's like, oh, how could you eat a sheep's stomach? How could you ever just work up the appetite to eat sheep guts? And the Scottish person says, well, once you're accustomed to arranging sheep guts, eating them ain't so bad. Sean Connery, he meets a friend at a pub, and they're talking, and this friend's also a foreigner. So Sean's going on about his mother, and he says, my mother, I never cared for her that much. In the afternoon, she would always make some rice, and when she cooked it, she would add a little spice. But that was the only time she was very kind to us, because most of the time she wasn't very nice. And his friend goes, you really shouldn't talk to your mother about that way. And Sean goes, or you don't like them, because the friend finds that offensive. He's talking about his own mother in a disrespectful way. And so Sean goes, well, you don't like my accent, huh? Fine, she was just a cunt. Captain Kirk, he's making his rounds on the Starship Enterprise, and all of a sudden he gets to Officer Montgomery Scott, and then goes up to Scotty and he says, Scotty, what's the deal? What have you been up to? And Scotty goes, oh, it was a whole big mess, Captain. The engine room, the engine, she didn't have the powder, so I had to spend all day working on her, and I got all this grease on my hands, and it's just covered in grease, and it's covered in grease. I spent all day, but I solved the problem. And then Captain Kirk says, oh, thank you so much, Scotty. Oh, you must have had help from Mr. Sulu. And then Scotty goes, well, yes, he did help in the engine room with me. How'd you know? Did he have grease on his hands too? And then Captain Kirk says, no, it's just the same type of grease is leaking out of the back of your pants. Well, thank you for joining me with this video. Wasn't the quality that I would have liked, but everybody's kind of crappy at YouTube when they're first starting out. So thank you so much, and yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you soon.